Hi everyone. This week, the Together We Are topic was chosen by one of our viewers, and she wanted to know, in eating disorder recovery, how can you cope and deal with people around you who are talking about food, dieting, and trying to lose weight, and how is the best way to manage that? I think that it's important to recognize that you are in recovery from an eating disorder, and one of the common things that I like to talk about with eating disorders is that eating disorders have nothing to do with food, and yet they have everything to do with food. It's one of the most contradictory things about eating disorders because most people think that it is solely about the food, when in reality it is the obsession and the mental fixation and manipulation of food to control and kind of deal with the surroundings and the triggers that present themselves. And I think it's important to realize that when you go into a conversation with somebody who wants to diet and wants to lose weight, is that you have suffered misery and absolute pain because of this eating disorder, and that it's not something to envy and not something to desire, because the amount of things that your eating disorder has taken away from you has left you horrible. I have a list actually of things that my eating disorder has taken away from me, and I'll look back on it when times arise when I feel like, why am I on recovery, why can't I just stay like my thin self that I was and go back to my old habits? And having that list and having things like that can really help. Especially when you're dealing with somebody who wants to go on a diet, it kind of reminds you why you're on the road to recovery, and basically how the eating disorder has stopped you from living a life and stopped you from enjoying the things that you once enjoyed. I think it's also interesting because in today's society, it is acceptable to talk about food, fat, calories, to talk about weight and dieting. And I know, I can't even count the number of times that I've gone to family parties or been out with friends, and the food topic just comes right up, and everyone wants to talk about the latest diet that they're going on. And at those times, I have to either one, try and change the topic. That is something that may seem hard to do, but by changing the topic, it's allowing you to hold control of the conversation and not allow the eating disorder to present itself and start talking about food, fat, calories, and allow your mind to slip back into that mindset. Because when you're working on recovery, it's so vital to recognize that manipulating your food does absolutely nothing. It just hides and numbs the feelings underneath that the eating disorder is trying to cover up in a way. And so I think in those situations, when you do find yourself with somebody who wants to talk about fat, food, dieting a lot, is try and change the conversation if possible. If you can't get out of the conversation, try and just leave. If you are in a big group, you don't have to associate yourself with that person. For example, at a family party, just go and talk to another relative, somebody that you know you don't have to talk about food with, because putting yourself in that situation may be triggering, especially if you're in a surrounding where there is food involved, like a family party. There's often food, or socializing with friends there can be as well. And having your mind then slowly fixate on food because of the dieting talk is not going to work. It might trigger a relapse, it might trigger a lapse, it might trigger just poor judgment, and have your eating disorder shine through. So I think the two things so far that I recommend is trying to change the topic, and if not, trying to get out of the conversation by leaving and going to talk with someone else. Now, as easy as I wish that is, and I wish everybody could just be like, oh, sorry, I don't want to talk about dieting, I'll just go elsewhere. Sometimes it is inevitable, and we find people constantly surrounding ourselves talking about food, and we just can't escape that. And when people are on the diet, I think it's important to recognize that they are trying to, whether it be healthy, for health reasons, or trying to lose weight, they are trying to kind of control their body because they're not comfortable with how it is. And the one thing about eating disorder recovery is recognizing that you can feel comfortable. Yeah, I don't know why I have problems saying that word. You can feel comfortable in your own body, and recognize that other people might not like their bodies, but you have to be solid in who you are. And the way to do that is positive affirmations, knowing things to say to yourself to build yourself up whenever the eating disordered voice tries to slip in and tell you that, oh, you're not thin, you're not pretty, you're not attractive, things like that. Kind of having a combat mode. I know I carry index cards on me with positive affirmations on them because sometimes I need them and I'll just slip into the bathroom or something and look at them, kind of to boost my moral whenever I feel that the conversation is maybe triggering me or giving me a rough time mentally. Now, I think that eating disorders are an interesting topic when it comes to dieting because you manipulate food to the point where it becomes an obsession, and the only thing that you can function and work on is the food. And it seems like so easy to slip into that and just let the eating disorder come out and engage in the conversation. But I think that the most important thing is really to separate yourself from that and to change the conversation. If they are talking about the diets that they're trying to say, comment that maybe they don't need to lose weight and that it's perfectly fine the way they are, but that you don't want to talk about weight. Whether they know you're in recovery from an eating disorder, you can say, this isn't helping me. But if they don't, then just say, like, I'm sorry, can we talk about something else? But again, you have those people who just run up to you and are like, I want to talk about my diet with you. And in those moments, I think it's important to realize that you have to be sure of yourself. You have to use the positive affirmations and the coping skills that you've learned in recovery. Um, and recognizing like things your eating disorder is taken away from you, so that whenever you see somebody who's on a diet, you can look at them and say, that is their life right now. But I have been controlled by dieting, by manipulating my food, by engaging in eating disorder symptoms for so long that it's so not worth it. And as much as my mind is telling me that this is the gateway I can slip back in and like do it, it's not the way to go. And kind of having those reasons why you're on the road to recovery really can help, keeping you in check and keeping you in line for recovery. So I definitely recommend taking a few minutes, writing that down, and just kind of sticking with that. So there's a phone ringing. Oh well. um, the question of the week is, when has a situation like that presented itself, when people seem to only talk about food, dieting, and how did you react? I think one of the things that always gets me is my mom. She always wants to talk about calorie content, stuff like the food labels, and kind of uses it as like a mechanism against me. And she'll be like, oh, this has so much fat in it, because she likes to eat organic. And so she'll point out whenever I buy something that's not organic, and it can sometimes be a hindrance in my recovery because she's pointing out the negative side of all these foods that I'm trying to eat, foods that have the protein that I'm not getting from being a vegetarian, or have different nutrients that I need. And the way that I dealt with that was, I found it really funny. I scribble over the nutrition facts with a black marker so that it's no longer a conversation starter. She can't pick up the food and say, oh, look how many grams of fat are in this, or look how many like calories, I don't know, like she can't point that out because I scribbled over it. And I think that's one way of taking the initiative and kind of stopping that conversation, doing something. And I know that I can't look at numbers because my eating disorder has been a numbers game, and I've always been in and out of that mental, like, adding, subtracting, just going, and it's crazy. And by simply doing that, that's taking the initiative and stopping like the obsession from occurring, and like allowing her to harp upon that and then get like into that whole conversation about like, oh my gosh, gotta lose weight, blah blah blah. And basically it helps me focus on the way to recovery. So I think that's my story. I know it's funny, I find it hysterical, but like, yeah. So, okay, I will talk to you guys next week. Can't wait to hear what the other girls have to say, and I hope that I answered your question. Again, if you have any other questions that you would like the TogetherweR team to address, don't hesitate to either send them to our personal channels, send them to the TogetherweR channel, post them in the comments below, or just let us know somehow, like send a carrier pigeon or something, I don't know. Yeah, but let us know and we'll get back on that, and yeah. Okay, hope all of you guys are well. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe, and yeah. Okay, I'll talk to you guys all soon.